welcome to Cheap Joe's Art Stuff. My name is Julie, and I'm here to impart some knowledge to you today via a 2-minute art tip. And today we're going to be talking about executing likenesses for faces. I get questions a lot about this. It's like, how do you do this? How do you break it down? All that kind of stuff. And I named this video, We Put the Like in Likeness, because I really think a good little portion of getting good at this is understanding the subtle, teeny little nuances that are little teeny deviations from the standard, or little unique things about people's faces that make them recognizable. What is it that's interesting about them? We're gonna break down some facial features and talk about what's kind of different about them to kind of get you into a visual habit of, if you're going to be working on images of people, like starting to pick up on those little teeny details that make them look like them. So we will start with one of my favorite faces, Leo. There's a couple of really cool things about his face. One, yes, you know, the most handsome and most beautiful people are always like super symmetrical, and he is. But he's also got some really cool features that are kind of unusual that make him look like him. And so I have a colored pencil. I'm going to be drawn all over him so that you can kind of understand like what it is that I'm looking at, and how I would break down, you know, drawing somebody for this. So first thing, you know, yes, yeah, you have the oval, you know, for somebody's head, blah, blah, blah. We know that one. So then we run a center line down. His head's a little tilted, so it's not like exactly up and down. So, all right, can see that, right? One is, like, you know, when you're looking at people's faces, their eye lines run at the 50-yard line on their head. Okay, so we're not talking 50-yard line from their hairline. We're talking 50-yard line from this point at the top of their head to the bottom of their chin. Okay, so run a line across here like this. Ta-da! Okay, now because his head's a little tilted, the center line's a little tilted, and then that thing's going to be a little tilted. Okay, so we got that in. Good. Now, then, if you're familiar with a little bit of anatomy and drawing, we take it again and we run the 50-yard line from that intersection to the bottom of his chin. That is where his lip line is. Okay, so we got that. That's cool. Now we're going to take roughly a line that runs from here to here and then cut that at about 25%. Now, one of the big indicators for what somebody looks like is, have you correctly got the distance from here to here and here to here right? It's different on each person. It's not mathematically like some kind of genetically, you know, predisposed thing that every human being looks like. This distance here between the end of the nose and the top of the lip, one, it changes with expression, but it also changes based on how that particular person's face is constructed. Okay. Then another thing that you'll want to keep in mind is that generally their brow line runs at the top of their ears. Okay, and then one of the other things that I use a lot of times is the corners of the mouth generally run in a kind of like a V through their pupils, and the edges of their nose run the corner of their eyes. All right, not all the time. That's another one of those variables that you have to kind of play with. You have to look at, okay, where does this sight line run in relationship to that? I know where, like textbook wise, it should be, but some people's eyes are just wider on their face, and so that V can be a whole lot wider or it can be a whole lot narrower. Now, the other thing you want to keep in mind is that generally the spacing between the two eyes is the exact width of the eyeball. So I ain't lying, I just actually use my fingers and I'll space them out. So you can see that this width here is the exact same width as this width here, okay? Now, that varies with each person. It's another one of those things you have to kind of keep in mind, but that's the general rule. And then everybody's got a different little shape that goes with their chin. Some people have like little squares. Some people have really, really long ovals. Some people have no chin at all. You know, it's just like face, hello, neck, you know, and so that recognizing that shape is pretty important. Now, Leo's got really, really cool chin. And a lot of times when you run the eye line down through the pupil, the corner of the mouth, generally on hot dudes at least, that line runs to the edge of their chin. Okay. Now, when we're talking about recognizing particular facial characteristics that make each person's face unique, you have to kind of look at some of the most recognizable parts of their face. And so this bar right across here from your cranial ridge down to the bridge of your nose is the most recognizable part of the face. That's why, like Big Brother, when they're monitoring your face as you're walking down the street, minding your own business, eating a corn dog, that's what they're mapping and stuff. It's my Big Brother speech. Anyway, okay. One of the things that's super cool about, like, that I love about doing portrait work is that everybody's face is very, very different, even though the construction is so very, very similar. So one of the things that I like about Leo's face is that he has really, really heavy brows. His upper lids are really, really heavy and deep set eyes. Mysterious man. And so you will see this natural arc that is formed as a shadow shape because of the way that his eyelids are, okay? And because this is so heavy, you get this cute little curve right here that runs up to the brow bone where his cranial ridge is. Okay, and so therefore you have, because this is so heavy and then these are deep set, you have really unique shadow shapes that occur at the corners that if you don't get them right, it doesn't look like him. So you have to get these really cool shadow shapes that are occurring here. And he also has deep eyelids down here, and he's got these little round shapes here. For his lower lids. Now, you got to keep in mind that his ocular opening is like right there, and that's what's responsible for a lot of this. But this whole relationship and how all of these darks and lights interact is because of that, inherent construction underneath there. Then another thing that I think is adorable is that he's got a very almost like juvenile nose. It's not large. It's relatively small in relationship to his face. And he's got this cute little round thing at the bottom and then relatively flat nostrils and stuff. So it's not like one of the predominant features of his face by far because it is relatively small, but it's distinctive. And so it has a very kind of unique shape. And the other thing that, get you is that his front teeth aren't symmetrical. There's one that overlaps the other in the front. It's totally cute. And it's just one of those little teeny nuances that makes people, differentiate each of us from each other, and just kind of one of those unique things about him. Lastly, I would say, it's got these predominant lines on the forehead, and I'm sure that if you were to ever see this, you love being scribbled on like this. Okay, then next we want to talk about some other people. Talk about people and break down their face. Here's another famous person. We've got a couple of reference images. Billie Eilish, or as my daughter's boyfriend calls her, William Eyebrow. Billie Eilish has a lot of fan art. She has a ton of fans. She's really, really cool and talented, and people love rendering her. It's not about that, yes, she's instantly recognizable because she has green roots and, all this kind of stuff, but she has a really, really dynamic face. Understanding what part of the dynamics of her face are is like what makes her instantly recognizable. Take the hair out of the equation. What is it about that face makes her identifiable? One is the mouth. She's got a really, really pouty mouth, so it's like super cute, looks like a little cartoon. But the other thing is she has very, very unusual eyes. And what is unusual about her eyes is that her upper lid always cuts off the top of her pupil. So the lid line actually comes well down into her actual iris, more so than typically like other people. And because she's kind of got that moody stuff going on, it looks even more so like that. The other thing is that typically if people are like squinting up and trying to be all moody, the lower lid would actually come up and intersect the iris. It doesn't. And so she has this kind of unique white space in between her iris and the lower lid that makes her very, very identifiable. So, the ice blue eyes, the green hair, yeah, all that, whatever, but it's that shape and the relationship of her eye that makes her so distinctive. So I was asked to block this out. All right, so I'm going to show you a little bit about how I block this out and how we make this work and what kind of reference points I'm looking at when I draw this kind of stuff. First of all, you will notice that this is, I'm going to slap myself for picking this image, but okay. See how the corner of her eye here is actually much lower than the corner of her eye here? So you have a diagonal like that. So we're gonna fire it in there, baby. Okay, get that line established. Then the other thing that you're looking at is, what is the eye opening? Because basically it's a ball in a socket. Okay, so we're going to say her eye ball actually resides right there. So here is her brow bone, here along this ridge, but this is actually where her eye itself is housed. So we're gonna put an edge in here, and we're gonna put an edge in there and up here and fire it in there. Get that circle going. Okay, so you'll see a lot of oil painters when they're doing portrait work. This is how they do it. They'll actually paint the entire eyeball first without the socket, without the lids or anything. They paint the eyeball first. And that's one of the reference points I use a lot of times, is to, what's happening with that? Where is it in relationship to the other little important bits and stuff like that. So we're going to keep our line in here. Then we want to look at, where is her pupil relationship. So her eye is actually turned a little bit looking inward. So it's not going to be like right there. It's going to be over a little smidge. I'm going to take it right about there. Okay. And her pupil is residing over this intersection. So like right about like that. And I'm just kind of, whatever for right now, just getting some reference points in. Okay, now another important thing to keep in mind is the edge of your eye doesn't incur right at the edge of your eyeball. That the way that the eyelids interact with the eyeball itself is it's laying over a curved object. So you kind of almost have to treat it like as if it acts like thick fabric, and think of it that way. So we'll put this in here, and then her eyelid fold follows very closely to that line, and it comes up like that. And then this part actually gets a little lost. A bunch of other stuff going on there. All right. Then this lid comes down, and it's covering up about a solid quarter of this bottom. So it would take, you know, right about there, that's where your quarter mark would be, and come up like this, go down like that. How we get that in. Then we have her lower lid and how that curves down, and then that becomes more just like a lighter shadow shape, so it doesn't need to be that harsh line right there. Now this thing is one of the things it absolutely drives me nuts, is this. When people draw bottom lids like this, and then they draw eyelashes like they're growing straight out of the eyeball. No. This is actually, it's very, very thick. So now that we've established what this line is, then we come back and we add some depth to it. So sometimes I'll just actually like put a reference line out from like, where is the thickness of this thing? You're going to come out like this. Probably over-exaggerating this for the purposes of demonstrating this concept, but it's thick, it's meaty, and especially when you're young and cute. It's when you get older that that line gets a lot muddier and wrinklier. But when you're young and adorable, it's easy to see, and you'll have a much stronger shadow shape along that that ridge right there. When you're young versus when you're old and crinkly a bit. So I'll come down here with this shape, and then that's where this lower lid, the thickness of that lower lid meets there. And then what you've got is like the corner of the eyeball is here, and then you've got your like tear duct thing that's happening there, that comes down, and then this is thicker, and then that is darker down there, stuff like that. So we're just going to kind of let it be loose, let it happen. Okay, and so then we got the upper lid crease that comes like that. All right, now you're like, yeah. Well, where's the meat and taters with this? Okay, so now we got to get the iris in there, and you can see that this right here, there's actually like a good little bit of space right there that we need to leave. And she's got big, beautiful crystal blue eyes. And we want to get this shape from here to here correct in the course of all this. So we want to get that curve right, and then we want to get this curve right. So we've got where this upper lid comes down and intersects with the lower lid, which you actually can't see the actual intersection too well because it's kind of obliterated by lashes and stuff like that. So But we have this very, very dark line where the lid wraps around the eye itself. And then we've got this darker line here. Okay. All right, now there's a whole bunch of stuff that's happening with her eyes, like highlights and reflections and stuff like that. But the basic gist of it is that you have her iris that's here. And then, you know, her pupil is actually very small in this image, so it's about right there. But you've got a whole lot of visual traffic and stuff that's happening like inside her eye. This is where using a much thicker, bigger pencil would be expedient. But that's expediency is not my thing, especially where these kinds of things are concerned. It takes me a while to get all this stuff kind of laid in. So you have a whole bunch of darker shapes, and you got a shadow that's being cast across the top of her eye like this. And then this is the tedium. This is the part about drawing that takes a little while. Everybody thinks, oh yeah, I saw this a minute and 45 on Instagram. This guy's drawing people in the subway. That guy's amazing though. But if you think that they were sitting there for a minute and 45, you're crazy. That's called the magic of time lapse, my friends. Check him out. He's amazing. I love watching him. He, you know, I think it's like Diego something, but he's in like New York City, and he encounters different people on the subway, and then we'll draw them while they're reading a magazine and not even paying attention, and then presents them with the finished piece. And some people actually just like burst into tears. They're just so like amazed and flattered, and it's so sweet. I love watching that. That makes you feel good, and seeing that kind of sweetness. So we're coming in here and defining these areas, getting everything kind of blocked in. And one of the things that people do sometimes is they don't pay attention to how that corner is. There's a lot of hardware that drives how your eye moves that's located right there in that corner. And so a lot of times there is a very distinct muscular structure that's right there in that corner that picks up this highlight. And people sometimes just muddy it up and cover it up, and they're like, the corner of the eye, whatever, you know, and it gets lost in there. And it's a shame, because that's a cool little feature of the eye, is that little bit of extra hardware in there. So we're gonna continue to lay in the way that the shadows are cast across this. So let's fire in some big shadow stuff. You know, and a lot of people forget that because your upper lid is fairly thick, that it actually does cast its own little shadow across the top part of your eye. And that's where you get some of that depth and that luminosity that people kind of sometimes leave out because they're skipping steps. You know, they're missing those like little nuanced pieces that are there because we're focused on something else, like big lashes or, you know, something like that, you know, and that's fun. Drawing eyelashes on stuff can cover a multitude of sins, I'll tell you that. But they're not the whole story. And there's a interesting shadow that's here along the edge of her eye that curves around and helps kind of create that kind of moody look to her eye, because this shadow is so kind of pronounced. In the interest of brevity and not keeping you here all day, we'll go back in and we'll punch in the highlights instead of drawing around them. Sometimes I'll draw around them, like leave the white of the paper, and sometimes I don't. It just depends on how I feel that day. It kind of also comes with a knowledge of the surface that you're working on. Am I going to be able to get that back if I need it? Am I going to be able to get back to that white to create that highlight and that punch that I need later on? Got to be a little bit certain and practiced with whatever surface that you're working on to make that work out. She's got a bunch of like beautiful striations in her eyes that I would play with for hours. I could sit here and do that, but that's not what we're doing today. We're going to just kind of get some of this big structure in. Now granted, if it was me and I was at home, I would work much more slowly because I work excruciatingly slow. I will painstakingly lay in every single line on this and make it take forever. But, you know, that's kind of part of like a little bit of a gift to myself, you know, that like there doesn't need to be a deadline. It doesn't need to be stressful. I'm just enjoying myself and doing the thing. The way this bends around has an interesting shadow shape on it. And then there's some transitional changes, thick, thin line changes in here in her upper lid. So let's get in here and get this part. Yeah, this is the drama and the pain that comes from having a really great pencil with a very, very small lead, is that we'll be sitting here for 18 years working on this part. Kind of looks like her eyes or lashes are growing out of her eyeball, and it's just because of the curve of her lashes and stuff. So I need to kind of keep that in mind. So let me get this in. Now you can kind of see where this is going. This is going to take a lot more shading and stuff like that to get it established and stuff. But you can kind of see how we've gotten the structure in, and the little snibbly bits, they come a little later. So we get these big structural elements in there first, and then worry about the little teeny details. But we've got basically the relationships are good in this, and we can just keep playing around with it and darkening things and moving some stuff around and really getting everything tuned up and like we want it. So I think you got the basic idea of where we're going and how that all these different pieces play together. So I'll spend some time and finish it up. I'll show you how it ends right here at the ending. But thank you for watching. Hope this was helpful. That's kind of a little snapshot into how I do things. Hopefully you can add this to your repertoire, your little toolbox of art knowledge, and go from there. So hope that this is helpful and hope that you enjoy.